Dear friends, the Ukraine Media Center continues its work, and right now in our studio we have Oleksandr Motuzyanyk, the spokesman of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, who will tell us about the situation at the front line. You're welcome. Hello, dear friends. I'd like to share with you information about the military aggression of Russian Federation against Ukraine. Information as of noon today, April 19. So, the enemy has intensified its offensive actions in the eastern area of operations. Their main goal is to fully defeat the units of Ukrainian armed forces, take control over the territory of Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, and maintain a ground corridor with the temporarily occupied territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. Rocket and aviation strikes continue against civilian targets across the whole territory of Ukraine, in particular in western oblasts. In order to target facilities in our country, the enemy has sent airplanes at least 49 times by tactical and long-range aviation of Russian air forces. The operational environment. In certain parts of directions of Slobozhanщina and Donetsk areas of operations, the aggressor has been carrying out offensive and assault actions, and in order to achieve success in its offensive actions, the enemy brings to Ukraine equipment, military equipment, and arms from central and eastern regions of Russia, jointly with combat units, their logistical units moving. And in order to quickly bring back into operation the arms and military equipment damaged in combat action in temporarily occupied territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, the enemy has deployed a logistical center to repair and restore it. According to our intelligence, currently there are more than 70 armored vehicles and artillery systems being repaired there. In Slobozhanщina area, the enemy uses its group from the 6th Army of the Western Military District for partial siege of Kharkiv, and it continues shelling Kharkiv from artillery. Within the framework of air defense of the offensive group, additional air defense tour missile units are brought to Kharkiv Oblast. At the same time, in Belgorod Oblast districts bordering Ukraine, in order to cover the main command points of the joint strategic commands of eastern and western military districts, as well as logistical district, the enemy has deployed S-400 and S-300 divisions from its western military district. It is probable that the enemy will try to continue to develop its success towards Izum-Barvinkovo, and to that end they have intensified air reconnaissance using UAVs. In Izum direction, the aggressor has been using its 1st Tank Army, 10th Army from the Western Military District, 35th Army, and 68th Armed Corps from Eastern Military District. The enemy has been carrying out offensive action on the left bank of Siversky Donetsk River towards Andriivka Zavody, Brashkivka Dmitriivka, and Sulugivka Debrivne directions. And in order to support offensive action of those forces at the southern outskirts of city of Izum, the enemy has prepared a number of main and reserve positions for artillery and missiles and rocket artillery. In Donetsk and Tavria area, units from so-called 1st and 2nd Armed Corps, as well as 8th and 58th Armies of the southern military districts of Russia, supported by bombers, have been carrying out offensive action along the whole front line. The enemy's main efforts have been focused on taking control of Popasna, Rubizhne, Severodonetsk, Mariupol, and partial strengthening in Avdiivka and Marinka. The enemy has focused its main efforts on breaking through Ukrainian defense, in particular in Luhansk Oblast, between Kreminka and Terny, Rubizhne and Popasna, and Donetsk Oblast towards Staromlinivka and Shevchenkovo. Also, the occupiers continue their attempts to take full control over Mariupol. In southern Buk direction, the Russian occupiers are trying to reach the administrative boundary of Kherson Oblast and to fortify there. To that end, the enemy has replaced its units on the front line. And in order to improve its tactical situation and move towards Bug, the enemy has been carrying out offensive action around Oleksandrivka. At the same time, the enemy continues civilian facilities in Mykolaiv. In Volynsk, Polisia, and Siversk directions, there are no significant changes in the operational situation. Over the last day, units of Belarusian armed forces continue implementing assignments to cover Belarus-Ukraine border in Brest and Homel oblasts. At the same time, Belarus continues providing its territory for airstrikes against Ukraine, as well as for reconnaissance, for intelligence against our objects by Russian armed forces. In Black Sea and Sea of Azov areas of operations, the enemy's groups of ships in Black Sea and Sea of Azov continue implementing assignments about rocket strikes, isolation of Ukrainian sea coast, as well as intelligence, reconnaissance. And in Black Sea, there are 4 ships which carry Caliber-type cruise missiles, and their total capacity is at least 28 rockets per launch. Now about illegal activities of Russian occupiers. The enemy continues to block and shell humanitarian routes, which makes it impossible to evacuate civilian residents of occupied territories using green corridors agreed upon. The occupational administration has been trying to develop a system of exercising force influence on civilians by creating local departments of Federal Security Service, Russian Guard, and so-called People's Militia. The goal of such activities is fighting Ukrainian resistance and preparing for so-called referendums in temporarily occupied towns and villages. The enemy has been also carrying out information and psychological operations against Ukraine, PSYOPs, in order to create optimal environment to get new territories. In particular, we see that propagandist media have been engaged to push Kremlin narratives in information space and justify criminal activities of Russia in Ukraine. According to Ukrainian intelligence, the losses of the 126th Brigade, Coast Guard Brigade of Russian Black Sea Fleet amount to about up to 75%. The 910th Separate Marine Brigade of Black Sea Fleet has lost 158 soldiers and officers who died, about 500 have been wounded, and 70 people are considered missing. A significant part of Russian servicemen from those brigade has submitted reports, applications whereby they say they don't want to participate in so-called special operation. At the same time, over the last day in Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast, Ukrainian defenders have resisted 7 attacks by the enemy, destroyed 10 tanks, 18 armored vehicles, and 8 cars and trucks, 1 artillery system, as well as the enemy's mortar with its crew. At the same time, Ukrainian air forces have downed 7 targets, including 1 airplane, 4 UAVs, and 2 cruise missiles. The total losses of the Russian occupiers in Ukraine from the 24th of February to the 19th of April have been as follows. Personnel, 20,800, tanks 802, armored fighting vehicles 2,063, artillery systems 386, multiple launch rocket systems 132, anti-aircraft air defense systems 67. Also 169 airplanes and 150 helicopters, 8 ships and boats, tactical 158 tactical UAVs, and 4 mobile tactical missiles launch systems. That's all information at the moment. Thank you for attention. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. Oleksandr, I'd like to clarify a bit about personnel. Maybe, you said 2,800. I would like to quote again for our journalists, maybe 20,000. Yeah, of course, 20,000, about 20,800 soldiers and officers of Russian army have been killed. Thank you, dear colleagues. You can ask your questions, but please use the microphone and introduce yourself if there are any questions.
The New York Sun. Some journalists have said the Battle of Donbass has begun. Would you agree with this statement, and why or why not?
Так, ми можемо про це говорити.
Yes, we can say so, because we see intensification of offensive actions of the Russian army along the whole front line in the east of Ukraine. Thank you. Any more questions?
Thanks. One other question. Can you talk a little bit about how the military challenges in eastern Ukraine are different than the military challenges Ukrainian forces faced in the defense of Kyiv? Thanks.
We are talking about
Завдання чиїх сил?
whose forces, but I repeated your question that it's about challenges faced by Ukrainian army, right?
No.
Загалом дії
Generally, actions of Russian units do not differ that much among different areas. Usually it's about strong artillery preparations, attempts to attack certain positions, attempts to keep Ukrainian units in place, attempts to surround our units and take control of towns and villages. The Russian Federation is mostly using Soviet textbooks, military textbooks. Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you, Oleksandr, for joining us, dear friends. Please monitor our announcements. Now we are preparing our schedule for today, so you're welcome to watch it. Stay with us. Thank you.